Just got to convert it over. All right, let me see if I'll get a little bit more. There we go, Stanford. Good.
Should I adjust the mic?
No, good.
Okay.
You're good on the mic.
Okay.
Just checking the levels, make sure the levels look good. Okay, so what we ended up was we were ended up talking about is 1980.
Were we talking about the movie and my access to the shooting?
Yeah, we were but there was a time kind of between 1980 when Mysterious Ways was released, and then the movie started shooting. So we're talking about maybe a 3-year span there. You were not happy with the sales or the marketing for Mysterious Ways, correct?
Well, no, I wasn't, but I don't think I deserved to be happy because of the book. I mean, I didn't write a book that could possibly sell well.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know it. I liked it too much.
Okay. So it's fair to say that when you started getting the sales numbers back and maybe some of the reviews, because Vision Quest was so glowing,
you know,
it was probably a transition
Mysterious Ways has got one of the nicest reviews I've ever seen. Just a beautiful, beautiful review. A guy named Terry Pringle for the Dallas Morning News. Maybe you could find it. The Dallas Morning News, Terry Pringle.
I can find that easy.
To do something that, what's the first thing you do when you sit down?
Like what? What do you mean?
Well, how would you find Pringle? I mean, I guess you'd find that Dallas Morning News.
I have access,
easy,
because of my research for my book,
oh,
I have access to every newspaper's archive.
Wonderful. Terry Pringle.
Yeah, I can find that easy. I'll even send it to you if you don't have it somewhere.
I don't.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
My mom kept it, but yeah.
So did you get paid more for your flat rate or whatever they called it, whatever you called it, for Mysterious Ways than you did for Vision Quest?
No.
So even though it was your second book and you were an accomplished first writer who had a book that became rights for a movie, they didn't see you as the next book we need to amp up the compensation.
No, they didn't.
Okay. And did they give you a reason why? Did the agent tell you?
Nobody ever talked to me about it.
Did you ever call your agent or anybody their frustration about the experience that you were having?
No, I didn't.
You just kind of, just internalize it?
Yes.
And thought what? I'm not going to write again, or I'll write the next book?
I'm going to write the next book, and I'm going to make it better, and I'm going to understand what not to write.
Okay. And what did you feel having the protagonist in the way that he did ruin the book to you?
I don't think so.
What is it that you think?
And I know it didn't ruin it for me. I don't know if it ruins it for readers or not.
What about the book don't you like?
I don't think the idea of him making love with those warts is workable. I think it's just too hideous. Too ugly.
Too ick factor?
Yeah.
Even though Milton and all the greats Kafka wrote about the bug, the metamorphosis, as he wrote the metamorphosis as an analogy, right?
I don't know.
I don't think that roach that the guy turns into in Metamorphosis was a real roach. I think it was an analogy for the system of government they were in.
What's the name of that book, Brandon?
Metamorphosis?
Yes, of course.
That book became one of his all-time best-known books. You know, that and The Hunger Artist.
Oh, I guess I do know it.
Yeah, and those were very uncomfortable reads, but you recognized it for what it was, and you recognized it as great literature. What I feel like's happened with this is that you got hung with the young adult label, and this book is not a young adult book.
That is what happened.
If Kafka had written Mysterious Ways, no one would be questioning the Wart stuff.
Really, you think?
I do. I think you got, like some actors get typecast.
Oh, I think you're right.
I think you got typecast with your book.
And that's what my agent, Liz Darnsoff, thinks too.
Yeah, just like Chris Crutcher, he is a young adult writer, whether he wants to be or not.
Yeah, yes, he is.
Probably what might have been better would have been for you to write a series of half a dozen books and then kind of mature into Mysterious Ways where people are ready to hear it from you.
I think you're right.
Because you went from Vision Quest just to that. And that's a pretty big leap.
I think rock and roll is good for kids, though.
That is probably your most young adult of the three.
Oh, you think?
I think so. I think that's the one that's probably closest to what I call the Chris Crutcher template of young adult thing. That was probably, having a fifth grade teacher leave psychosis on you and stuff. That is very young adult thing would think about. How they're in a position where that they can pinpoint that ill treatment, and now how am I going to get past it, kind of thing. That's what kids think about. Loudon's was coming of age for sure, but his was at a time when he was peaked.
Yeah, and a little bit older than.
Yeah, and then Russ, of course, is the middle of the Vietnam War and assassinations of MLK and Robert Kennedy, in probably the most upheaval time of our country. And so there's all kinds of ways you can look at that writing that you were influenced by externally, not necessarily shown. The book was written of its time, Mysterious Ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you read it like an adult and not like a young adult, you can see analogies all the way through it. Subconsciously by you or not, I don't know, but you can see it.
Boy, I don't know either if it was subconsciously so.
Because I know the news was probably impacting your thought process about when you think about that time period.
Oh yeah.
So the movie comes up, 80. Let's just say 83 when they start production, late 83. And you're probably at that point, because it's being filmed in Spokane, you probably become a minor celebrity just because you're the writer. And
minor.
Yeah. People want to talk to you, newspaper.
Oh, a little bit.
Yeah. It kind of peaks up a little bit, right?
Yeah, it does.
Stars are in town, that sort of thing. And they wrap up filming and go away.
Modine is a real loved character here. He's a beloved character.
Probably because he came back for not only the 30th year thing, but he also came back for the fundraiser thing.
Yes, he did.
He didn't have any reason to do that.
No, just kindness.
Right. And there's a part of me that would think that he would think that was a fluff movie for him. Right? It was one of his early movies. And it was like, he did that and Gross Anatomy and some coming of age movies like that. And then he does the
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket.
Has some of that.
Yeah. And he starts hitting at a plateau as a major studio guy. And it's weird about him, is like you would think he would want to talk about Kubrick. Yeah, acting a star of a Kubrick movie. You know how they are. He has no trouble with Vision Quest.
No.
He has no trouble with it at all.
Doesn't seem like it.
No. Any kind of comments I've ever heard has been very positive in the experience. And, the guy who played Bulldozer, Forrest Whitaker's gone on to have a great career.
He sure has.
Didn't say probably 2 words.
No.
The one thing in the movie that always made my friends laugh was right before the last match, everyone's in the locker room, the coach is saying something to him, and Forrest Whitaker, Bulldozer's putting on
puts tape around his wrist.
And it's like at an angle, and he kind of smoozes it. He did, you know how you're supposed to, we always made sure it was smooth, right?
Yeah.
And his is getting crumpled up. and he still tries to put it over, and he kind of goes looks up like that.
Oh gosh.
And we were like, you never would leave it like that, because you always wanted to feel good, and if you felt good, if you looked good, you felt good, and if you felt good, you played good, and if you played good, they paid good. That's what we always used to say. He starts off with looking good, and it'll show. So we go out to football games to make sure the tapes, everything was, we're all look good, we're all clean. And he had this kind of like, he was like, it didn't look like he put a lot of tape on his wrist.
It did.
Yeah, and so we got a kick out of him. But even Harold, what's the guy who played the dad, Cox?
Ronnie Cox.
Ronnie Cox. The guy had been in Deliverance. I mean, you had some really good actors in that movie.
And the guy who played the grandfather done a lot of work.
He'd done a lot of work. I didn't recognize him, and then you got Michael Schofield, who every girl at that age was in love with. All my girlfriends thought he was in those movies he was in. He was like the cutest guy who ever lived.
Yep.
They hated him as Cooch because he's a pretty boy.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't like him as a guy with a mohawk, and they thought, no, that's not him. He should be Loudon. And then
maybe that's right. And
then they just talk about the different characters, and then Carla Linda became. She went on to have a great career. So it really you can't say that about a lot of movies. Becker and those guys may have been kind of assholes, but they knew how to cast a movie.
They sure did.
I do remember. Usually, people either read a book first and then they see a movie, or they see a movie and then they read the book. Like I saw Jaws first, loved it, read the book and hated it.
Really?
It sucked to me. All these weird things like Hooper having an affair with the Brody's wife, it was just not needed.
Yeah.
The movie was so paired perfectly.
That's what
with a 3-part act.
That's what I've always thought.
To me, it's the most well-made movie ever, because it starts off with man versus this, man versus himself, man versus. It covers all those bases, but it doesn't beat you down with it, right? And but that's an example of the book being way worse than the movie. And when I read Vision Quest, I thought, I wish I could turn every bit of this book into a movie, following the book exactly. It would be so great to see that. The day of Netflix now, they may have done that, but it's really big now to have series now on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
So it might have done. So
I'm hoping that could be something that happens with Tim Swain.
Yeah. Vision Quest ends, the movie goes away, things die down, and then you are ready for that. Because you got Rock and Roll Machine in '84. And did it come out with the same publisher or a different publisher?
It's been out with a couple publishers. That might be Viking.
It's Delacorte Press.
Oh yeah.
Which is Bantam. Doubleday. Well, this is '92, and the first one. Okay, this is a redone. '84 was the first one. I got that at home. So when that came out, what was the response?
Well, there wasn't much.
What did your agent think?
I think I saw some good reviews, but
were you excited to say, "Look, I got 3 now. This is what I do"?
I like rock and roll. I like that book, so I feel good about it.
Were you only writing, or were you writing and teaching?
Writing and teaching.
When did you start going back to teaching? What point in the 80s?
Man, I don't remember.
Yeah. Was it after the movie?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
So sometime after '85.
Yes.
And where'd you go teach?
At Shadle High.
Shadle High.
Yep.
What did you teach there? English?
English, yes.
And how long did you teach there? So
taught there 2 years.
When you taught there, with everything fresh off the movie, were people always talking to you about it?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Like, you're the guy who wrote that, and that sort of thing. So that was pretty cool, huh?
It was cool, yeah. And I liked teaching there. I liked the kids, and I liked what I was teaching.
Where did you go from there as far as teaching?
It might have been Gonzaga, or maybe Gonzaga was before Eastern. I'm sorry, I forget.
Now, that was 84 when you wrote that. At what point did you write something else?
I don't know.
Because you submitted some stuff. Was family life going on? Was you busy with your motorcycle stuff?
No, that's come much later.
What was it that made you stop in 84? Did you stop writing?
I don't think I did.
So where's all the stuff that you wrote between 84 and 94?
Well, I'm not sure, but that would be in Mankato, Minnesota, where I taught there at Minnesota State.
Yeah. So you're there and you're teaching, and in your mind, were you thinking, I need to keep writing, or
yes, absolutely. And it wasn't a burden. I looked forward to it every day. I looked forward to walking to my desk to get at that keyboard.
And why do you think you didn't have anything published as far as a book form after that?
Well, I don't think I finished any of the pieces I was working on. I wrote The Fiery Heart of Kilimanjaro. I wrote a bunch of that stuff. And
what year was your daughter born?
Let me see. 82.
So 78 and 82.
Yes.
Okay. So during that time, I'm just doing the math in my head, you've got a young family, right? And you're teaching. Your energy level can't be consumed with writing like it was when you were younger.
No, it can't.
Because you're spread out more. So, to me, that makes perfect sense. You're trying to, with all the problems.
The kids are great support for me writing. They're great support.
Yeah.
In fact, that forward I'm sending to Nisi, and she's writing a romance novel right now, and I wanted her to think and make notes on how the forward works.
Where does she live?
She lives 40 minutes north of Seattle.
Okay. So you've got one in Paris and one in basically close to Seattle.
Yep.
Okay. And tell me about, do they both have kids?
Pascal has 2, Nisi has none.
Nisi has none?
Yes.
And Pascal, he's got 2.
12 and 6.
12 and 6, and what are their names?
Nina and Clea.
Tell me a little bit about them.
Oh, they're so, for one thing, Nina is so beautiful. I keep trying to get Pascal to take her to some auditions, but he's not doing it.
Yeah.
And Nisi really likes her life alone. She likes her little house. She likes her hot tub. She likes her outside fireplace. She did meet some guys on the net, but she just hasn't found anybody she wants to be with better than she likes being just with herself.
Sure. Do you think you consciously raise Pascal different than you were raised?
I think so. I think I do.
Yeah. Were you sensitive to the fact that you were, trying to, if he had some sort of predilection for something, you wouldn't make him feel like that was less of a man?
One of the things that I believe I did right was introduce him to motorcycles. And now he and Nina ride together on the périphérique around Paris, and he loves bikes.
Yeah.
He always had a trail bike when we were living up at the the cabin.
So you taught in Minnesota from what to what?
Well, I retired in '99,
Okay.
and I think I went there in '86. Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know.
That's all right. So we get into the 2000s, and what I'm trying to get around is you deal with some health stuff. So what all the health stuff kind of cropped up to you out of the blue?
Well,
You had a fall,
yeah, I had a fall, and
checking for cats.
oh yeah, trying to find that poor sweet little cat before she got beat up by the other two, the two wild ones.
You were like on a ladder or something, fell right, hit your head.
Ladder.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta be dumb to do what I did. They were right behind the bathtub, and I set the ladder on the edge of the bathtub. Insane.
And you went down,
I went down.
someone
I went
found.
over and down.
Yeah.
Landed on the other side of the room.
And what was the prognosis on that? What would what did they tell you?
Well, the Mayo Clinic did. They did brain surgery on me, and I don't think they did anything about the heart. Then I think that was all brain.
When did they discover the heart aneurysm?
Well, it was sometime in the relatively early 2000s, and I had met Deb, my wife that just dumped me, on Match.com, and she was. I invited her out to the shop one evening, and I started getting sick. My head hurt. I started throwing up, and I thought, well, this must be what a concussion is like. And she took me into the, what do they call it?
Emergency?
Yes. And the emergency doctor listened to my chest, and he said, boy, you've got quite a heart murmur there. And it wasn't a heart murmur. It was blood banging against the aortic valve. So they put a new valve for me, a new mechanical valve in for me, and told me not to plan on any surgery because it was inoperable. So that wasn't too. So that's why I retired. Wish I.
Do you go in to get a CT scan to see how big it is, or how it grows?
Yes, I do.
What's it at now? Do you know the size?
I don't know the size, but they say it's not getting worse.
Okay.
So
The aneurysm itself.
right.
Why is it inoperable? I thought they just replace it with a sleeve or something.
Well, that might be so, but they told me that it was too close to the spinal cord, that surgeons don't want to tackle anything that, what would be the word? Anything that,
That close?
yes.
Okay. Okay. So, tell me a little bit about just a general thing of Son of Swain. That's the next book that you're hoping to publish.
Yep.
And so it's a sequel to Vision Quest.
Yes, it is.
And kind of just tell me an overview of it.
Oh, and Tim talks about his dad a lot, and he talks about the ending of Vision Quest, and that he likes it, and that his dad likes it, but a lot of people wanted it liked knowing who won.
Yeah. And when do you kind of foresee in your own mind? There's kind of two parts. There's a movie screenplay part, and then there's a book part. Do you foresee the screenplay being done before the book?
Yes, I'm doing it.
Yeah, right.
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
That's the plan.
Yep, that's the plan.
And you think how long do you think do you have a time frame on your head?
Christmas.
You have it by Christmas? Okay. And right now you're talking to some producer guys who are interested in it, right?
Yeah, they're down just a little bit. Well, they're near where I lived when I was at Stanford, which is a little town called Mountain View.
Okay. So you're 70 what right now?
76.
76? Pretend we're 50 years in the future, right? And you're talking to the future. What would you want people to remember you as and who you were and the
well,
people
I'd
you
like
loved?
him to remember Vision Quest, and if Son of Swain works, you couldn't remember one without the other.
Right.
I don't know quite how to say this. I don't think I can put them together, but I think if you read one, you would read the other. I think people would.
Yeah. Do you still doubt yourself as a special artist?
No, I think I'm a good writer.
Okay. Yeah. The self doubts that you've had about yourself, those demons are gone.
They are pretty much. Yeah, they are pretty much.
Yeah.
Because I keep at it. I'm at that keyboard every evening.
When did you start feeling that itch again to produce something, to be creative?
Well, it was moving around all my books, try to get into Harvard Park, and I just said, look at all these books. I want to be a part of this. I want to be among these people. By God, I want my books on the same shelf that I got my budding gear.
That's great. So I'm thinking from Rock Road to Machine till now is over 30 something years, right?
Long damn time.
So yeah, it would be very well received just because it's.
I think that'll make a great movie.
Yeah.
I sent it to one of the production guys who had emailed me. He emailed me on behalf of himself and his brother, and I haven't talked with the brother at all, but the one guy who's a former wrestler, I've emailed with him, and I think he likes rock and roll.
So let's say that I take this and I go and I talk to 150 to 200 wrestlers who've been impacted by your book. Why do you think it has such a hold on particularly wrestlers? Why do you think that?
Well, I think it's fun. I think it's a fun little book.
But do you think it needs, for something to resonate with you, does it have to be more than fun? Does it have to touch you?
Fun is plenty.
Fun is plenty.
Fun is plenty.
Right? You don't think that it speaks to them at a more depth of a level where they find inspiration from it?
I don't know.
You don't know?
What in there is there to get inspiration from?
Everything.
You think? Oh.
Everything. That's the disconnect that I'm so shocked by meeting you about is your honest ignorance of the impact that the book has on people. When you say fun, it's almost a diminishing of how impactful the book is.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if young guys are touched by his
sincerity.
Yeah, and his, by God, commitment to getting this thing done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and to wrestle this kid and scratch that one off in his journal.
That's not a sport for someone trying to hide.
Oh, no.
That is not a sport for someone who is a wallflower.
No.
It takes a certain amount of willpower to put yourself out there like that. And not only to put yourself out there, try to be good at it.
Yes.
And I think that you convey that so well in the book. There's a loneliness to it. There's a commitment to it that people don't understand. There's a price to pay, like cauliflower ears, that the guys can relate to.
There's a funny part where, you know what a gripper is,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a steel and they squeak, and I might have told you this. Stop me if I have. Tim's in class, and the kids are looking around, and the teacher's walking around and trying to find out what the hell that squeak is. And Tim says, "Well, it's me."
He's doing it absent-mindedly, probably. Yeah.
He says, "It's me. I'm sorry." And then he takes a little while and he talks to the class about wrestling. He says, you know, a wrestler's got to have a good, strong, do you call it a core?
Yeah.
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 And he's got to have an iron grip. And, I'm working on my grip. And I promise they're making a new thing now for grips. And it's a ball. It's not a used racket. It's not a worn out racket ball like so many guys grip, but it's made to be squeezed, and it's difficult to be squeezed. And by God, next time you see me, I'll be squeezing one of those and making no noise.
Teacher was like, I probably didn't need to hear all that. I just wanted you to stop making noise. Let me, I don't want, let's try to finish up here a little bit.
That's a good bit on what the teacher says.
That's funny.
Wonderful. That's perfect.
Okay, I'm going to zoom through these real quick. I'm not going to do the whole book because it'll take forever. But why did you choose the Davis Madlock from Edgar Lee Masters as your? Why did you choose that?
Would you read it to me, please?
Sure. I say, live it out like a god. Sure of immortal life, though you are in doubt, is the way to live it. If that doesn't make God proud of you, then God is nothing but gravitation, or sleep is the golden goal.
Well, I use that because I believe in it.
Yeah.
And
wow. Isn't that amazing?
I believe in it, that's all.
So you had read that one time and said, if I ever write a book, I'm gonna use that as my opening quotation?
No, I haven't, but
somewhere you read that and said that would be perfect for that.
It just always touched my head and heart both. Touched them both.
Now the difference in the book is that Carla starts off living there, and that was so mind blowing to an 18-year-old Brandon that a girlfriend gets to live at the house. Did you know anybody like that, or why did you think that was?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, why would you think that they would be a good, understandable thing that an 18-year-old has his girlfriend living there at the house?
Well, I knew it was pushing credibility, but I thought I brought it off okay.
Yeah, you did. I'm just curious what when your thought process was. You had maybe a reason for it, but it just felt like it felt right.
Well, I felt like it was just one of those great, strange things that happens in life, and that it was almost a perfect thing to happen for Loudon.
Oh yeah.
In his life at that time.
Yeah. Now, when we get introduced to Cooch is when they have the wrestle off, and you know it tells a little bit about him talking with the Everywhere Spirit. And I had not heard of the Everywhere Spirit before. Where did you get, is that something from locally up here?
No, it's something from, I've read lots and lots of stuff about Indians. It's from there.
Yeah.
From there.
Yeah. And that's how they're referenced?
Yes.
Now, here's the line that I always laughed at because I was like, I have no idea what this is, but it makes me laugh. He's wrestling with Cooch and he says, I popped to my feet, bellowing like a goose dromedary.
Camel.
I go, what is a dromedary?
Well, Loudon would know.
Right, Loudon would know.
Everybody would know it's Loudon.
It's Loudon. But I got a real kick out of that because it was from a writing standpoint, it linguistically flows so beautifully, even though I didn't know what it was. You know, a bellowed like a goose dromedary. I mean, it was such.
I think an awful lot about the sound of my sentences.
Yeah, the word that's musical almost. And you know, this is the part I remember when I read it, thinking, I wonder if he got any grief from this. But he said, Gene's my friend, talking about Gene Tannerham. He's very horny stud, and he's got what they call a penchant for high school girls. Nowadays, that would be like, But we had teachers in my school in mid '80s that was very common.
Really?
6.
Yike.
2 of them still married.
I'll be darned.
But it happened. And I was thinking when I was reading this and marking this up, wow, you couldn't get away with that now.
No.
Even acknowledging that.
No, you couldn't.
It's just odd to me how far we had come. It was interesting to me. We talked about where you got his name from. That I was always curious how you pulled that together. Now it makes sense. He was talking about his parents, and he said that mom and dad slept in 2 different upstairs bedrooms, and I was wondering, was that a sign that they weren't getting along?
It was. I meant it to be a comment on her endometriosis.
Yeah.
And you got to have a hard time making love if your uterus isn't functioning.
Yeah, and he's probably trying to be encouragement, but after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, a guy starts getting loony. So it takes a really pretty special person. Oh, I took her up to Manito Park, but then I took her to High Drive, and I did those today.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. When I saw them,
did you see what High Drive was like?
Yeah.
And over that valley, looking over that valley.
Yeah, it was very, very cool for me seeing that after reading that so many times and envisioning what it was. I also went by the Rapida Hotel. Rapida?
Ridpath.
Ridpath, right.
Ridpath.
And you can see where he runs in and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes.
So I took, that's one of the places I stopped today as well. Here's something that I read when I was 18. And I was kind of always given a hard time for reading a lot. Like, we built a cabin in New Mexico, and my dad would get mad at me because he needed me as a laborer. And I was reading, at the time, The Fellowship of the Ring. And I was knee deep in 2 Towers. And he was like, get out here and haul this lumber, And I read this and I was like, people always thought I was kind of smart. And I don't know where I get it. And my parents were not educated people and they didn't push it. So I'm like, where did I get my kind of smartness from? But it says, I read quite a bit. This may be why I've done pretty well in school so far. There may be a correlation between reading a lot and appearing to know things.
I like that.
I love that.
Way to go, Terry.
That is one. You asked me one of the things.
Appearing to know things.
Right. You asked me what are some of the gems that touched me whenever. What is it that pulled? When I read that, I got validation that what I was doing was the right thing.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. That's perfect.
Yeah, that's something you wrote in there, and it was like beauty on the page. And it was like I told you, I had some light bulb moments, and that was a huge light bulb moment for me when I read that. Oh,
I liked Loudon. I liked typing up his story. I liked inventing it too, but it was just fun. It was fun to hear him, hear him coming off those.
And then he's reading. He wrote a book. He got a B in a paper he wrote from Don DeLilio's End Zone.
Yeah,
which is one of my favorite books of all time.
Oh.
But it is one of my favorite books of all time because I read this and saw Don DeLilio's End Zone. And so I went on a Don DeLilio spree where I read all his stuff. And I loved End Zone because it's about football and stuff like that. Well, he said I misunderstood the book. Right? Because it made me think I misunderstood the book. The instructor wrote that my approach is too personal and that I misunderstood the book. He said it was a metaphor, not about football at all. Beats me what it could be a metaphor for. Carla thought it was about how living with a bomb fucks us up. I still think it's about football.
That's not bad.
That sounds like me. That's like Brandon.
I still love football.
I still think it was about football, but it probably wasn't. Also, I was really, really sad that I was not going to see my friends again that I played football with since I was 5. I was depressed. They were all going to rich schools. I knew I probably would never see them again.
You know, you've got to write some fiction. You really have got to.
But I read this, and this is one of my light bulb moments for me that got me through it. Tanner Rand once told us that college is where you make your lifetime friends, and they have been, but I hadn't yet. He said college is where you begin your intellectual growing, and that you just grow away from your high school friends. I hope that doesn't turn out to be true. I never want to lose friendship with Cooch or Otto. I guess it can't turn out to be true if I don't let it. It happens whether you want it to or not, right? And I didn't want to lose interest high school friends, and I, at the time, thought, no, I'll still be friends with my friends. But the thought that you meet your lifetime friends at college suddenly excited me, and I wasn't so scared anymore. It's like, I'm going to meet new people that I like, and maybe I'll know them forever. So I had invested so much in high school, in sports, and my identity, that once that ended, it was like a death for me.
Yep.
I wasn't like thinking, yeah, I get to go to college now and play football for high school. And I thought, everything I love is dead now. It's died right in front of me. Everybody in this town knows me. They all like me. I've established a good character, a good name. I'm a good athlete. I'm good at school. I grew up in a trailer house, and I've accomplished this stuff by my sheer willpower, and now it's all gone. All that I accomplished doesn't mean anything because nobody cares over there at Southwestern what I did here. And so I don't know how I picked that up and started reading these little things like that and going, Sanders, look at it from this point of view and see what you think. And it really was cool. And then Cooch says, they're talking about a vision quest. I like to see if I can't find my place in the circle. I like to know why things happen. I want to get clean. And I felt that was very interesting because I don't know if Indians call it find their place in the circle.
Well, they do talk about the circle.
The circle of life. But I want to get clean. It was very interesting to me. It was whatever demons and baggage and stuff like, I want to get clean of that. And so it was almost like I totally understand what he's saying. I'm not an Indian. I'm not around Indians, but I understand that feeling of wanting to get clean again and pure. So it was that part was very just well written. God Almighty. Here's another one that I had to stop myself before, and to read it on a page from a guy was amazing to me. It says, it's whenever they'd stacked the little fort.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it was, they were mellow and kind of just drinking beer and talking. And he says, I sat and thought what it would have been like to live 100 years or so ago. I wondered if it was more fun to die of smallpox or cholera than emphysema or cancer of the colon. I looked up at the pines and threw them at the stars, some of which probably burned out when my dad was a kid and when his dad was. The Columbia was a river then, and the Kettle Falls was actually a falls, and not just the name of a little town. And I thought that in a few months, the greatest time of my life would be over, and I'd have to go somewhere and become more responsible and make that new time the greatest of my life.
Well, something like that might be inspirational. That's possible.
Not possible.
Well, I've never. I believe that.
I read that and it was like, some people feel about the Bible when they get like a spirit. It was like, in a few months, the greatest time of my life will be over. It's exactly how I felt. And someone wrote it down. I wasn't alone thinking that. I wasn't weird thinking it. Someone, you, who didn't know me, wrote it down, and it was saving my life. It was like, it's all right. Someone's thought this before you. You're not unique in your thoughts, Brandon.
Did you make good friends in college?
Huh? Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, I did. And it was just the fear of I'm in a little 3,000 town. I'm a big shot here. I'm a big frog here. I'm not going to be any big against the world. I'm just not going to. Nobody in my family's ever been good against the world. I can trace them back to just being frontiersmen and survivalists. They're good at surviving against harshness. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. I used to get up in the morning and go outside whenever I was training for football. Open the front door at 6 a.m. before I started my morning jog and give the neighborhood my mountain man good morning yell. I did the same thing. Because they would say, we don't need a rooster, we have Brandon. I go, scream it out, and,
that's wonderful.
And then I would run. So you start to see some of the, I didn't think, wow, I'm a psychopath. This guy wrote a book about Brandon. What I saw was, most of the time I felt alone in those thoughts and thought no one would understand them and I'm kind of weird for having them and you're putting them down on the page as if there's nothing weird about that.
I don't think so.
Maybe you're validating my neurosis. I don't know what you're doing, but it helped me become a good human being at least. And he talks about, he gets nostalgic a lot. And I was very nostalgic at the time. For it to be so fresh, I became like instantly nostalgic. And he was being that way too. Because he's like, he's having a dream and he's on the swings. And he's like, how many David Thompson sneakers rub the sand this former grass? All those people, you don't even know their names. I'm lean. I carry the colors of the Columbia. I can make the river flow again. And then you write down, which is just beautiful writing. It's just beautiful writing. And it's concise. It's not flowery. It's just beautiful. And then he says, I've been reading Rare Diseases lately. It's ghastly. Poe could have written it. That is hilarious. Poe could have written it. Just makes me crack up every time I read that line.
Well, I don't remember using the word ghastly. I like it there, but
it's ghastly, yeah. And then the first time that anybody ever heard the word priapism, and the problem may be pathological, Gene, and it's like the fact that he says it may be pathological is so clever and funny. Instead of just saying I got a heart on that won't go down. He's just so clever how he gets around to telling Gene about it, And then he says it's pathological, which means he's thinking of himself as a doctor already, I guess. When we had showers in our school, in our locker room, that was like jets, right? But they were in a circle, so you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 to 5 jets that guys would get under to shower.
I really like the part in If Rock and Roll Were a Machine when Camille Shepard's dad walks through the shower water to talk to him when he's crying.
Mm-hmm. That was great. This happened in my life as well. Practice is over. I sit on the shower floor, turning pink under the hottest spray I can endure. I can just remember doing that. We've got the drains plugged with towels, and the water's about 6 inches deep. So we made our own little pool or sauna.
They're sliding around, aren't they?
Yep. The visibility is about a foot through the steam. The effect is strange. You hear shouts and splashing, but you said, I don't see anybody. God, this is just so visual. Remember, except when they come up to use your shower and fall over you, or when they go sliding by in a seal race. We had seal races all the time.
Oh, God.
And I'm thinking, how can a guy in Washington be doing the same shit we were doing in Springtown, Texas?
That's one of the great things about athletes.
It's just so, it's like, we did the same thing. We made and the coaches would come yell at us because we were clogging the drains, and we'd still do it. Crossing the Monroe Bridge is a pain, which I did today, and now I see why you said that. That was interesting. Just how funny you were talking about running the Monroe Bridge, and this is my parents divorced, and they divorced. Part of my sadness at that time was my parents divorced a week before my graduation. They separated. They eventually got divorced, but they said, "Dad's gone," and my mom saying, "Don't go to college. I don't know what to do." And I'm like, it's almost like that Christmas movie with Jimmy Stewart where he's trying to get out of the town. That's what I felt like. It's like, this town's not going to let me leave. It's not, it all worked out, but at the time it says, "I let my spirits get a little low on the way up to the park to meet Cooch and run R3. I guess I haven't really gotten over feeling a little weird about mom and dad. Stupid as it is, I kind of wish marriages would last forever. Actually, I sometimes wish everything would last forever."
That's kind of nice.
It's kind of nice. You've been so separated from this that hearing it back kind of makes you
wonderful. God, it's wonderful.
And it's like, you said,
and it is especially wonderful, Brandon, because I'm going to rewrite it, and I'll know what to save and what to. I've got to fix the endometriosis stuff. I'll fix that.
Yeah. Says, "I'm proud of Mom and Dad for having the strength to fight for big time happiness after years of something they must have not been enough. Christ, it must take guts to break up at the age of 50 to go right out and find somebody new to love better." That's what age my parents got a divorce. And so reading that, I was like, I could look at it as bravery instead of what I saw as selfishness. Because I was coming from how I felt and not how they were feeling. And so something like that sobered me up a little bit when I read that. And the end of the year is just a bad time for me anyway. I get used to thinking about time moving, and I have to fight hard not to be depressed. In a few years, no matter how healthy I am, my brain cells will begin to die. I could be the most heavy-duty stud in the Northern Hemisphere, the ace exobiologist or space physicist in the world, and I'd still really be nothing but a candidate for motehood in the sweep of time's great dust cloth. If time can take the Columbia River and turn it into a big fucking lake, there's no limit what it can do to me.
I got that.
Wow. Every year I read this book, that stands out. That little stands out, and it means something different every time. But being self-aware of time and not letting days just go by and taking for granted and stuff is what that really means to me. Knowing that it'll end, but along the way being aware of that fact and
Brandon, I didn't realize how good that book was.
You didn't?
No, I didn't.
That's why I was telling you, and you go, "Oh, it's fun." I'm like, no, there's wisdom there for the ages. And then he says, Christmas carols wafted faintly from the Lutheran church. They have a tape that runs day and night. They play it real low and creates a fairyland atmosphere. What can it hurt? I half expected to see Jesus crunching moodily through the park. Poor fucker with all those wasted dreams, all those deluded souls on his back. And I see the Christian faith talked about in all your books in some form or fashion. And you come across, your characters do, which I think is probably part of you, and is probably and agnostic. But deep down wishing you were wrong. That's what I feel. You may say, Brandon, to me it's just a crock, but your characters are all seem to be striving for the hope.
I really love the New Testament. I think the Old Testament's creepy, but I admire the character of Christ so much. God.
And you talk about all those people depending on him and those riding in his back, for something better. How much that must feel. I grew up as Christ being right, and what you've done a lot of your stuff is you've humanized him, which he was when he was here as a human, if you believe he was here. A lot of debate on whether or not that's true or not. But
I think it's a wonderful idea to send your son down to a place that you know will be his death to save humanity.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a wonderful thing.
Where I've gotten in trouble with my preachers, because I talk, I'll say, why do you have to do it at all? Why sacrifice your son at all? Why don't you just make us better people? You have that power to make us loving and giving and take hate out of our hearts and not hurt each other. Why don't you just start there instead of having to sacrifice the son to do it? And I get some really bad heathen looks for that.
That's a good way to say it. Heathen looks.
I do, and I'll tell my wife all the time, I'm going to get in real big trouble if I make it to heaven, because I got so many questions.
Oh God!
That
he's going to drive him nuts.
Yeah, get out. But that just don't. Dad and I triple checked the exhaust system for leaks. Some snowshoed and industrious axe murderer might have gotten us, but carbon monoxide didn't have a prayer. What's so funny about that was like some snowshoed and industrious axe murderer. That's such a clever line.
Is that when they're going out to see the deer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he checked. They're going to sleep in the car, and oh, this is great. You seem to just touch it so well. Christmas Eve is a gas all day, but Christmas night is always a bummer because everything I've looked forward to is over. I've never heard anybody say it before, but that's the feeling you get. When it's all over, you're like the 26th, whatever, you're like, that build, especially if you're a kid, that build up, it's like, oh, it's all over. And you're let down kind of because it's over. And man, he liked Jesus Christ Superstar.
Boy, he did.
And then you talk even more about religion here, but in a different way than I've ever seen. Pilate is a figure who really interests me. After I'd seen JC, Jesus Christ Superstar, a few times, I ran across this book called The Master and Margarita at a garage sale. The cover implies it's about the devil and supernatural stuff, and I bought it for that interest. It is about the devil, but it turns out to be a lot more, too. It's mostly a satire on Russians' artists' unions. I guess. Anyway, Pilate is a character in it. Buglagov, the author, shows Pilate suffering in the immortality he achieved through his part in Christ's superstardom. I can't figure out whether God meant Pilate's immortality as a reward or a punishment. He must have meant it as a reward, or at least a compensation, because Pilate sure couldn't be blamed for Jesus' death. Pilate didn't have any choice. He couldn't have let Christ off. He got sucked in. He had to stay within the divine scope of events. If he let Jesus off, it would have spoiled everything. Pilate was duped, and so was Judas. They can't have the story without those guys.
No, they sure can't.
And it's almost like what I told you about Sisyphus.
Oh, yes.
It goes the same way. Imagine Sisyphus happy because that's the only way you can. That's almost the same thing with Pilate and Judas. It's like you got to kind of imagine that they were happy to be part of the plan. But and then it says a person sure doesn't have to be a great athlete or politician or doctor or artist or entrepreneur or performer or any type of degree of greatness to find challenge in life. About half the time, I think it's a great victory just to be able to smile semi-regularly, to keep your head up, to keep from giving in and getting mean. I mean, if I ever was elected president, I would read that passage. You know, everyone, this generation wants to be a superstar. They want to be in the limelight on TV. You know, these kids today think that that's the height of everything. And just getting through the day and not being there and make you mean really is a bigger challenge than anything else. It's just, I just picture you. Did you just like have a notebook and know how to write that little part, and then wrote the other stuff? And then, okay, I got them insert this little part, because they almost seem like little bon mots of wisdom among the story.
Well, Loudon is really me in so many ways, and I just sat down there and was me.
It comes across though as so smart for a 28-year-old, 26, 27, 28-year-old. The wisdom in this is one you get from someone your age now. And that's what's surprising to me, is how much wisdom is imparted like the stuff that you're saying.
I'm having a problem with Tim Swain in that way, and I'm worried about what all I've allowed him to know. And sometimes I talk to the reader about how Tim knows all this stuff, and I'm going to need to fix that and make that believable.
Make him not
credible.
seem so
Yeah.
knowledgeable about everything.
Yes.
Because you're still at that age where you're going to mess up, and that's how you learn. But if you know everything in advance, you don't mess up, right? So this is what we also did in high school. Bulldozer comes over, pats him on the knee, and says, "Shit to the 13th power, sausage," which is a French way of saying good luck. We said that to each other before every basketball game.
Oh, God.
That was our motto in my school. I told them about this, my buddies about this. They thought it was hilarious. So every time we would before we would do something, we go, "Shit to the 13th power, baby," and we would go.
Oh, God.
And that it came from this book.
That's wonderful.
I don't know if it freaks you out that there was this whole and I'm not alone. These wrestlers now, I'm not assuming it's just wrestlers, but they're using these kind of stuff as their template for their own lives.
I'll be darned.
And you seem like, this is the part that they basically switched out Otto with Cooch in the movie.
Yes.
Otto's got a little tougher. I used to stop by his place on the way home from work until one night when just before I knocked on the window of their apartment, I heard Mr. Life yelling at Otto that he was just a big fat baby and not as tough as he thought. He began slap fighting with Otto, boxing him around the room. Finally, Otto yelled, "God damn it, Dad," and shoved him across the room, past the door, and into a wooden table, which shattered with a crash. Mr. Life got up swearing and swinging. And I was like, oh man, they switched Otto's predicament with Cooch in that. And I don't know why.
I don't either.
Other than Cooch and him were friends, and Otto and him weren't in the movie. That's the only reason I can think. I'd love to munch some candy with Dad. I could probably handle a piece or two. I'm holding 147 pretty well now. It's just that eating trash food after all this time would spoil the pattern. It would upset the rhythm I'm out going with my body and break the deal I made with my spirit.
That's nice.
Isn't that nice? That was very great. Then, what we talked about a minute ago, we were talking about metamorphosis, but I really feel like I understand that Franz Kafka story, a hung artist now. It's about this guy who's fasting as a profession. He's making a good living at it until somebody invents the radio or something, which is just they didn't, but this is so great how you wrote that. And everybody turns elsewhere for entertainment. He should hang it up and move on to some other line, but he doesn't. He's become an artist of hunger. What was once a painful discipline has become fulfilling and beautiful for its own sake. His manager tries to get him to quit, but it's too late. The hunger artist just fasts himself into a pile of dusty satisfaction at the bottom of his cage. And, that was a hard story. I mean, to me, there's not a lot of difference between that and what Russ goes through.
No.
And so I don't know why people, except that you were a young adult, and Kafka wasn't considered an adult. In 5 days, I'll wrestle, shoot, and in 4 months of working toward it. Then we've got test week at school. I'll turn in my senior thesis, and it's all over. It feels funny to know it's ending. You see things in a special way when you realize your days among them are numbered. You see people, right? You see things and people in a special way when you realize your days among them are numbered. You try to treat people a little different so you can leave them with the truest impression of what they've meant to you. I can always go back and hang around school like some guys do after they graduate, but I don't want to do that. I want to put the high school part of my life behind me. When we would play football, along the fence line would be the dads, but also guys who graduated 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 that you recognized and knew. And you always felt sorry and sad that that's what their life is, coming to watch us play on Friday. That's where they're at now in their life, and they didn't get away from Springtown. And so when I read that, I was like, I remember feeling that way too. This idea of realizing your death and accepting it and keeping its realization with you always is a major thing I got out of Carlos Castaneda's books about his days with Don Juan. This awareness and acceptance of death sets up an almost contradictory way of looking at life. On the one hand, your time is short, so you use it preciously. On the other hand, it all comes to dust anyway, so you don't value anything too highly. You have things in a perspective that allows you to live in equilibrium with the universe. I've tried to find a way to work A Christmas Carol into my senior thesis, but it's almost done now, and I'd wreck it if I tried to stick in something new. I've got the Castaneda stuff in it though, all the way through it. It's so great. And then you call it the mean goodness. The mean goodness. It's about the meaning of life. And that's kind of what I was trying to find, and what guys who read this book try to find is, what's our meaning of life? What does it mean? What's all the stuff that I've done up till now mean? Where do I go from here? There's a big part of that here. Gene quotes, "By some chance here we are all on this earth, and who shall ever tell the sorrow of being on this earth, lying on quilts on the grass in a summer evening among the sounds of night. May God bless my people, my uncle, my aunt, my mother, my good father. Oh, remember them kindly in their time of trouble and in their hour of their taking away." And that's that AG point that you break apart. That was so great. AG's getting at the tasting the mean goodness out of their living, that the men understand or at least feel the meanness of life. Good because it feels good, mean because it feels so good you want it to last forever. And that's so how you put that AG piece in there and tied it into this book was just.
I do save those things when I run into them.
It doesn't feel forced. It feels like it fits perfectly though. And here's the thing, it's just some universal truths that you put in that when you start as a freshman and you go on a road trip, you sit at the back. The older you get, the more toward the front of the bus you seem to go until you're right up in front of the coach. And it's like, that was the same way we did it, but no one told us to. It's like this feeling that maybe you're more adult, and in the back you're laughing and making jokes and farting and stuff, but one part in there that I wanted to ask you about, if this really happened in
the Volkswagen wreck.
How'd you know that? How'd you know I was going to say it next?
Well, I don't know.
A gas truck was jackknifed across the highway, and a VW sedan ran to the side of it, right where the gas valves were. That was such a surprise in the book. I was almost just like, oh my God, that just happened. Where did that come from?
It happened out there. The road is still, still a deep rut there.
Wow. And so you just incorporated that in there, that they saw it. Some guy was coming back from the Air Force Base or something and hit a couple of guys. But it was so great in the book because it was kind of fun, and they were excited about the road trip, being jovial and kind of doing stuff, and then they're hit with the reality of life.
Well, I was I don't know where I learned it, but I came to the point where I said, Jesus, something bad's got to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
It's been too much fun, and I mean you can't write you can't write a book where there's not a sense of fate or.
Yeah. It was definitely the part where I was like, and you talk about the guy's head lolling, the word lolling, just I could visualize it, and how the guys were looking out the back and it was getting hot in the bus until they sprayed down, that fireman sprayed down the thing, and everybody backed up. And it was, your descriptiveness, you've probably been told this, is a real talent. Because you don't over describe something, but you describe it in a way in your descriptions that make it so crystal clear what the reader is seeing or feeling or hearing or whatever. Some people overdo it, some people underdo it.
You know, it's possible that what allows me to do that is not believing I can do it any better. Knowing it needs to be there, but kind of pulling my mania back a little bit.
Pulling it back.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, another roadside attraction by Tom Robbins. I hadn't heard of this book before I picked this up, but it's such a funny, scary premise. Robbins' characters don't believe the purpose of life is to die and be resurrected in a Christian heaven, so they aren't terribly surprised when one of them finds the mummified body of Christ where it's been stashed in the Vatican basement all these years. For a lot of people, that knowledge would knock all the meaning or purpose out of living, but these Robbins people create their own meaning in the way they live. And so that kind of goes back to the agnostic view of making a worthy life worthy, not because of some universal or forever gift for being a good person, but doing it for the purpose of that's what you should do as a human being, like being lucky enough to be a human being and using that kind of gift. I've only got a few more, Terry, then I'll let you go. I know I'm kept you longer than I should have.
Oh, this is fun for me.
This is the part that I like very much in the book that I did not like in the movie, but I understood it. Shute and his dad were sitting at the counter when we trooped in. Poor fuckers, they drove all the way over here to watch me wrestle Rilke, and you didn't. I talked to Gary for a minute at the match, but I wanted to just say hello again, so I stopped. Hi, Gary, I said. Hi, Mr. Shute. I shook hands with his dad. And I remember thinking, oh, Mr. Shute says, I don't know what you guys are going to do with anybody at 54. You know, kind of joking around with them.
Yep.
And then they show them the Sports Illustrated faces in the crowd thing. And I thought, these are two guys who are battling it out at the top of their game, but they're still decent to each other. They're not snarling at each other and stuff. And not, I like to see blood. And I understand why the movie did it. It made him Jaws. It made him the Predator.
Yep.
And that's good for that. But when I read this, it made me happy. It made me feel like competing is an art. And art doesn't have to have a winner. I compete because I want to win, but I don't have to hate the person I'm competing against. Afterwards, I can shake his hand and say, good job, win or lose, right? And I always struggled with hate when it came to athletic events. If someone's trying to kill my family member or something, you know, they're a different army, I would hate. But for an athletic event, I could get just as much amped up for it without having hate be part of the process.
Yeah.
UFC is really big right now.
Yes. Oh gosh, yes.
I don't watch it much. I think it's a little too brutal for me.
Me too. For me.
I just know what a football helmet does to your brain. I can imagine what those punches do. So, but they're all based on hate build up, and it's just a press conference hate, build up hate, talking to media hate, saying horrible things about each other's family, and they think, and the reason is because that gets seats that gets butts in the seats. And I've always just thought, I try to think in my head, you know, Ali used to do that with people. He would build up this thing with them that was negative, that he didn't really feel. And I was just trying to think back, when was the last time I saw two great competitors at the top of their game go at it without bad-mouthing each other? And I couldn't think of one. Maybe Secretariat because he's a horse. But humans, I just couldn't think of one where someone said, you know, hey, I want to beat him like I want to beat, you know, anybody, but he got me. And I'm going to go back and work harder and try to get him again. I'll get him one day. No, he's great. He's great. You know, instead of going, making excuses, you know, I had a bad day, I had a bad ankle, they cheated. You know, Trump, they cheated. They didn't win the election, they cheated. This is a horrible thing to pass on to people that are impressionable.
Boy, it sure is. It sure as heck is.
It's like we're passing on the worst traits of our humanity instead of the best. And people expect it. That's what they expect you to pass on. I don't know what they would do if somebody... well, we saw what they did to Jimmy Carter. A good person. You say what you want about him, but he was a good person.
You bet.
No one can say he did anything that we know about untoward. They booted him out of his office as fast as you can spit. And you wonder why. You wonder why you wouldn't want someone like that as your leader and looking out over you. What they want is that they want a guy that is so evil, he scares the rest of the world.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
It's not for us, it's for the rest of the world, I think is what people are thinking. Just after we pulled out of Denny's parking lot, Otto called out above the den, "Hey coach, how about next year you don't get us up so early just so we go beat up some Cowboys and Miners?" Smoozler declared in a firm cadence, "We're not going to be here next year, turd head." The bus went a little quieter for a minute or two while the seniors thought that one over. And that's what happened to the guys that I interviewed when they won state for Dangerfield. They got on the bus after winning 631-8, and you know they won the state championship 42-0 in the final game. And they got on the bus. They go, "Who's next? Who's next?" There was, you know, the seniors were going, because they've been so programmed that was their life. And the coach goes, "There's no one next, guys." And they said that the bus got real kind of down after that. And I read that. It really, really reminded me of that interviews with those guys, you know, saying, "What's next? What's next?" He's talking to Bulldozer about writing his paper, his thesis. And he says, even if you believe in eternal life, you got to realize your time on earth is incredibly short. And I explain further that along with this has to go to the realization that we not only die alone, but we really live alone too. That no matter how we love our families and friends, we can't breathe for each other when they're...
AVOLI.
I remember going, he could have picked anything, but he picked AVOLI. Clog up with cigarette smoke and car exhaust, that we can't pee for each other when our kidneys stop working, and that we can't really comfort each other once we know these things. This is the real reason Thomas Wolfe couldn't go home again, and why old Don Gennaro won't ever reach Ixtlan, and most of all, why we've got to love people who deserve it as fiercely as we love our own lives. And then Bulldozer says, "Oh, you're right about growing up." This is where the screenwriter got that last line, didn't he?
I think so.
That's where he pulled it from. And that's the end of the book. I was like, "Oh, Davis isn't going to let this kid lose, is he? Please don't let him lose." Sausage and the lead guitar. Oh, by the way, the band plays Santana's Samba Pati, which is my mom's favorite song.
Really?
Yes. I was like, "Oh, wow, kind of weird." Sausage and she loves Santana. Oh, she loves him. Sausage and the lead guitar player take turns with the melody. They both play it so clean and sharp. It's funny to see Sausage do something with so much poise. You'd never guess that most of the time he's just a dumb kid like the rest of us. It makes me proud of him. We clap a lot when the song is over and we wave Sausage a good night. I love that friendship right there. That you're recognizing friend of yours doing something that is really great, and not being jealous by it or ignoring it or making fun of them for it. Like, my son sings a lot.
Oh.
But he does this new kind of singing. It's not really my style, but it's a different style. He's gotten really good over time. But his friends are, you're not going to be a fan. You can't do this for a living. They're just it's like a negative trombone section.
Huh.
And I said, man, we would have never done that. We would have always been saying, you got it, baby. You can do this. Hey, give me tickets front row. You know, the time is so much harder to be a kid now than it was.
Oh, you think?
Absolutely. Everything you do is online. Everything you say is online. Every thought you have. You go to school with a pimple that someone takes a picture of it and posts it. You don't have room to be a kid and make mistakes nowadays like you could then. There's no room for it. And they identify each other at 12 years old as being, you're trans, I'm this, I'm that. You don't know. I said the generation boxes itself in a corner by identifying each other as something as absolute. When you're going to change 30 times before you hit 21. Things you enjoy, things you like, things you care about, things you don't know about. And so to identify yourself in such a way that you don't give yourself you're boxed in, is only going to make you feel claustrophobic and will thwart your ability to grow. But these kids do it. So I just tell my son, just don't listen to anybody. If you ever listen to one thing from me in your life, do whatever that inside of you is telling you to do. Trust it, and don't worry about it. Don't fret over it. Don't listen to other people. The world is filled with mosquitoes whose sole purpose is to try to make you a mosquito too. And you've got to be able to do your own thing and not sit there and say, well, they don't think I'm good enough. Mm-hmm. If you had listened to your dad's and uncle's thoughts, you would have never wrote this. Something broke out. Something broke away from it.
Yep, something did.
And thank God it did. Think what we would have lost. And this is the part that makes me change when I talk to my son about sports. Good luck, son. Do your best. Thanks, Dad. I will. It's all we ever say. I guess that's all there is to say. But just once, I wish he'd tell me, go out there and make him remember us, Loudon. Bulge and snap, crack, zing, whip, dance and fly. Write the name of Swain and shivers up everybody's spine. Dad would never tell me that, but maybe he's thinking it. If you were just thinking it, I'd be happy. So whenever my son goes and he plays, I go, make him remember Sanders. Make him remember you. And he always smiles when I say it.
That's wonderful.
But I never, ever say, oh, sorry about your loss, and you could have played better. What I always just say is how you feel, and then let him talk. And I don't ever dissect his games. He'll ask me sometimes. Sometimes he'll say, "What are some things I should have done better?" And I'll say, "Hey, you just continue practicing. Is how you're going to get better. There's nothing specific. Just keep doing better. Just keep doing better. You know the fundamentals, whether it's sports or singing or whatever." And that seems to be a pretty good response, because all he really wants to know is that I care and that I got his back no matter what. I think that's what you want a dad to be.
I think so.
And try to keep him not worrying about things that adults have to worry about. Like, if we're worried about money or we're worried about this and that. I think you should be a kid as long as you can.
Oh gosh, yes.
And so I've let him purposefully try to be a kid, not trying to grow up so fast about stuff. I got 3 more here, and then I'm gonna let you go home and drink.
Okay.
In our moment, I'll edit that out. In our moment of silence, I think about the millions of factors that combine to bring about this moment. I controlled a few, but most I had no control of. I made the decision to lose the weight and wrestle shoot, and I trained hard. But I can't take credit for my birth as a healthy male in a relatively loving family with enough to eat. And it wasn't me who set things up so the wrestling bus arrived after the VW hit the gas truck near Cheney our sophomore year. A few minutes earlier, and it could have been us. I realized my 18 years have been full of real good luck. Silently, I thank my parents for the gifts of life. And I think at that age, you're really so self-centered that whenever you do get to the point where you think that, yeah, of all the things I'm complaining about, I'm in the house with something to eat. No one's beating me nightly before I go to bed, you know? I'm freaking lucky. Stop your whining. This book stopped me from whining. It really did. And I don't know why I went in a funk. Probably their divorce combined with graduating, combined with being poor, combined with not knowing what I'm going to do. But it was like, pretend you're not an agnostic for a second. You're a Christian. It's like God went, but it said, read this and let's see what it does for you.
Boy, that's quite a compliment on a book.
Lemon pie reminds me that in about 7 minutes my life will be back to normal. I'll study during the day and work at night. I'll develop a new routine and maybe make some new friends and enlarge my world a little. I had built up our football games that there wasn't a world after that and what I would be doing after that. And it was like, yeah, I'll be studying and meeting new people, and it recentered me whenever I was kind of off the rails a little bit. And then I'm calling myself into the circle. Behind me trails a brief tradition. It's made up, but it's mine. Win or lose, the river flows again, which is such a great line. Shoot and I cross and shake hands. The whistle blows. Through me flows the power to blast Grand Coulee Dam to smithereens. One of the first words you wrote when you thought of this book.
Yep.
So now I went through this with you. Can you see by some of the stuff I pulled out of this where the impacts were felt?
Oh my God, yes.
Well, before you didn't maybe
and
see
I didn't remember them.
Yeah.
But absolutely.
So you should feel good, Terry.
Well, I got my glasses. Well, I do feel good. And I do feel good thanks to you, Brendan. Oh, I got my glasses. Okay.
I'm sorry I kept you so long.
And I got my key.
Oh.